Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Let's Eat. I will be completely honest with you right now. It is approximately 65 degrees out, if not warmer, and I really tried to think, how can I record an episode on my deck? Now, is that realistic? Probably not, but did I give it some thought to it? Of course, because I'm sitting at my desk. I just came in from a walk. I made some dinner. And now I'm sitting down to do the episode. And I told myself, just do it later when it gets dark. But I know as soon as it gets dark, which now it's about 7:15, I'm not going to want to do this. No offense to you all, just as far as energy levels go. And yeah, I just need to get it done now. So here we are. But I will continue to give thought to this concept because I'd love to be able to record outside. I'm sure there's a way for me to do it. I just know the noise and the sound is not ideal, even when I record in my living room versus in my office. The ceilings are much higher in the living room. So I don't know, maybe I should experiment, because I think that was before I really got confident in the audio on my episodes. And so now moving into my office, it's more contained, but I'll play around with it because I'd love to be able to sit outside and just chit chat and record episodes. How fun would that be? So anyways, today we're going to be talking about my nutritional journey, and as I moved over the course of my journey, sharing a little bit more about insights that I gained and how my nutritional habits evolved. I thought that this would be really fitting for National Nutrition Month, and speaking to how normal it is that this can happen, and not so much in the sense of just when you're misinformed or not informed to becoming informed. That was a big shift for me, as I think a lot of people experience, but more just how your nutritional habits can in fact change, how different types of foods or different practices work for you versus what might work in 5 years, or how your body's changing, maybe going through a certain phase in life, whether it's a hormonal shift or a gut healing journey or whatever the case might be. Your diet can and could potentially look differently over the course of that time. And so I want to share a little bit about what my experience has looked like, so that not only can I share on my growth, but I also can demonstrate how things can change. And then hopefully this encourages you along your own nutritional journey to start to consider how it might shift for you, or maybe experimenting by removing certain foods or adding in certain foods. Maybe you were a vegetarian for a while and now you're thinking about adding in some animal-based food, whatever evolves from this episode for you. I encourage you to lean into it. This is just a way for me to share with you how my journey has unfolded and how I got to where I am now. So, thank you for being here. As always, I welcome you to my table and let's eat. Welcome to Let's Eat. I'm your host, Emily, certified holistic health coach, functional nutrition expert, and self-proclaimed wellness enthusiast, here to meet you at the intersection of physical and mental health, the space within which we become well. This podcast is meant to explore all areas of mind and body wellness, designed to offer you the integrative knowledge, behavioral strategies, and mindset shifts necessary to uplevel your health and feel better today. We'll explore nutrition, sleep, movement, self-care and stress management, habits and routines, self-development, gut health, mental health, and more. I'm so happy that you're here. Welcome to the table. Let's eat. So, I guess to set the stage a little bit, I know I shared about this in my first few episodes, like literally the first 3 episodes of the podcast. It was all about my story, and I broke it down into 3 different parts. So I'm not sure I've talked about this since then, but I'll kind of refresh a little bit. I think my awareness around nutrition really started to emerge in my early 20s. So that's really where I'm going to focus. But I'll just give you like a general backstory about what my upbringing looked like. My dad owned his own produce company. He was a produce distributor for smaller restaurants in the area, and he did this for 39 years, I believe it was. He just retired last August, and you would say, wow, Emily, is that where you got your love of fruits and vegetables from? And I would say, no, it's not. Because my dad would bring home produce, but it wasn't like we were inundated with produce and we all ate lots of different fruits and veggies. Not the case. I was most definitely raised on the standard American diet, which, of course, at the time, that was not something I knew existed, nor do I think it even existed. I mean, the food existed, but the concept of it, I'm not sure existed. Maybe it did. I don't know. But at 6 years old, 10 years old, that wasn't something I was too concerned about. So growing up, I ate the standard American diet. I don't really know how to explain it otherwise. I mean, I loved Gushers and Trix cereal and spray cheese and deli meat. And I used to make hot chocolate with half and half. My mom would always let us do milk and then a splash of half and half. And when she wasn't looking, or if I made it on my own, I would make it with just half and half. And then I loaded up with whipped cream and lots of Nesquik. I'm trying to reminisce. I ate fruit roll-ups and Doritos, and we didn't have soda in the house very often. It was just on special occasions, which my family hosted a lot. I had a beautiful back deck with an in-ground pool in the house that I grew up in. So being a family of 6 and having 3 siblings with all warmer month birthdays, we always hosted. I was the outlier. I have a December birthday and everyone else was born in the spring and the summer. But lots of celebrating, lots of hosting, and that was the norm. I mean, I would eat vegetables. I remember my mom would make us eat Brussels sprouts, the ones that Green Giant makes in a box. But other than that, I don't recall eating a lot of maybe fruit. I think my mom would definitely have fruit in the house, but maybe not so much in the vegetable department. And it wasn't until my late teens and early 20s that I really started to pay attention to that. And not because I thought it was healthy. I thought that was what I had to do to either lose weight or maintain weight, which I think is very much the way we see diet, is we associate diet with weight loss, and we're not associating it with longevity, with our health and our wellness and our well-being, and we're certainly not associating it with, well, how's my liver functioning? How are my hormones? How is my gut health? How is my brain health? All of the things that I now know are dramatically impacted by the foods that we eat and the foods that we don't eat. So growing up, I mean, that was the way it was, and I didn't know any different. And then, like I said, moving into high school, I think that was when I started to become more aware of my body, and being that I've always been tall. I thought I was 5'9" for the longest time, and I went to the doctor and she said, no, you're 5'8" or 5'8.5". So now, PSA, everyone, I'm not 5'9", I'm 5'8". But being that I'm tall, and my mom being a rather petite human being, my siblings and I never really had issues with our weight, which I feel very lucky about. And I also didn't have trouble with weight gain. So that was maybe not something I was too aware of, but certainly aware of my body, being a female, being 16, 17, and being at that age still thinking I needed to lose weight or I needed to, exercise in order to look a certain way and so forth. So I think 16, 17, and 18, what I was eating was more like low calorie, more being aware of that aspect of food and less about the quality. And as I got closer to senior year of high school, and I guess maybe my junior and senior year, I started to exercise more, and exercise really just consisted of spending far too much time on an elliptical. That was really what I did. And, just normal high school behavior, drinking, eating when I would drink, and then wanting to exercise and only doing cardio and then trying to watch calories and going on these more fad diet. It was the stereotypical what young adults do. And I hate to say that because how horrible is that, right? That we're damaging our bodies in this way and our metabolism in this way by over-exercising and under-eating and whatnot, and women especially. But that was essentially what those years looked like. And I remember I joined a gym because my mom was a spin instructor at our local gym. And so I joined that gym, I think as soon as I got my license, I'm pretty sure. And so I'd go there. But, a memory flashback. My best friend and I used to go to McDonald's every day, not every day, but a couple days a week after school because I had my license and I could drive us. Her birthday wasn't until later in the year, so I was the one that had to drive us. And she lived right by the high school, so we'd skip choir practice, shame on us, and we'd go and get McDonald's. And I am known to love a Big Mac. So once or twice a week, probably even 3 times a week, you'd find me eating a Big Mac. Just standard high school behavior that I have zero regrets around. The only thing I regret is beating up my body as much as I did when I was trying to cut calories or doing these fat cleanse diets and believing that that was what I needed to do. I mean, at that age, I bought into detoxes, cleanses. I shared on an episode back in March or April of last year, which I'll link it in the show notes, about how it would get to a certain point of the year, and that was when I would really go into overdrive to lose weight or to look a certain way, never actually fully achieving that, and then entering this cycle of intense exercise, really aggressive calorie counting, and using MyFitnessPal or using this other app. I forgot what it was. I think that's what I used. And then coming to the summer and falling off the wagon, quote unquote, and then, getting to the fall and saying, all right, well, it's the fall now, so I don't have to worry about it. And then, kind of losing my grip come the holidays, and then fast forward to March and April again, and it would be the same thing. But all along the way, I had no understanding of food. I had no understanding of nutrition. I knew what was conventionally assumed as healthy, and that really included salads with no dressing or vegetables or chicken breast, and that was it. That was what I knew. And I think that's the reality of a lot of people's experiences, which I think also puts us in a very claustrophobic position, because when you're thinking, and I have shared this with a number of my clients, if you live in a world where you see eating healthy as just eating salads or as just eating chicken and broccoli, which for many years, that's what I would see. I mean, I remember eating that a whole bunch when I worked in the restaurants that I worked at my junior and senior year. And I think claustrophobic is the best word to describe this experience, because if we are under the impression that that's all we can eat because that's what eating healthy is, how miserable and how monotonous is a diet filled with salads and chicken and broccoli. Now, don't get me wrong, I love a good piece of chicken and broccoli. I love broccoli. Healthy or not, I love broccoli. And I love a good salad. But to feel as though those are the only foods that we're allowed to eat, that feels stressful. And guess what happens when our body is stressed out, or we feel trapped, or we're told we can't eat anything else? We resist. We pull back, of course, especially when it's a threat to our literal survival. Of course, when we're like, wait, I have to literally live on chicken and broccoli and salads for the rest of my life, and I have to eat. I have no choice but to eat, and that's all I can eat. That's all that I'm allowed to eat. That's pretty stressful. Whether you outwardly, overtly recognize it as stressful, your subconscious probably recognizes it as stressful, because I would hate that. That would be miserable if that was all you could eat. And that's essentially the energy that healthy eating, or that's the reputation that healthy eating gets. And that's the reputation that I had. Or I'm sorry, that's the impression that I had about eating healthfully. So fast forward to 20, 21, I'm now out of high school, And when I was 18, turning 19, that was a rough period of time for me. I was going through a lot emotionally. I transferred from University of Delaware back home to the community college. That was when I got my job bartending. And that was when I had lots of confusion around nutrition. There was a lot of emotional eating taking place. I was gaining weight. My relation with exercise was turbulent. I really didn't have much of a relationship there. And it wasn't until probably a year later that I started to actually, I guess, look at nutrition a little bit differently. It certainly is not at all where I am now. I mean, where I am now is a completely different person than who I was when I was 20. But moving into 2021, 22, that was still the time frame that I think I thought I was eating healthy, or it was more of oscillating between extremes. So I would eat the salad or have the chicken and broccoli, but then I'd oscillate to the other extreme and eat whatever I wanted. And there really was no balance. And also, I think any attempt at eating more healthfully, I would consider a diet. I think that definitely is what I recall. I'm trying to think back. I definitely was drinking a lot, I guess, period, because I really don't drink anymore. And I think I thought I was eating well, but I look back at pictures of myself and I'm very inflamed. I definitely have excess weight. You can see it on my face. There's just puffiness. And at this point, I had moved in with my dad. And so this was the first time that I had to actually buy my own groceries, which I wonder what that looked like at the time. I wish I could go back because I just wonder, And so into my early 20s, there definitely started to become an awareness around nutrition, but very, very limited. I, at this point in time, started having issues with my skin. My health was honestly a mess. And as I moved through my early 20s into, say, 23, 24, 25, I started Eats by Emily in, I don't know what year, but I just turned 24. Holy cow, I just turned 24. And I'm 30 now. Can we just put that into perspective? I started Eats by Emily, which is the former name of Whole with Emily, my Instagram page, at just turning 24. So I was 23 when I started it, and now I am 30 years old. Holy cow. Wow. Anyways, but through that first, let's say these first 5 years of my 20s, I was under the impression that I was eating healthfully. And I think that this is the issue with so many individuals. Now, I am probably going to say this 10 times throughout this episode, but there is no one size fits all to nutrition. I believe the one size that does fit all is whole real foods. So I'll say that confidently with guarantee because that is the case. But as far as how one chooses to fuel, it's going to look differently based on needs, based on your body, based on what kind of journey you're on. So I always want to be sure that that's put out there. But I did not know anything. Who was I talking to about this? I was talking to somebody about this the other day. And I forget who it was. But just how much I know now, and don't get me wrong, there's still so much to learn, but just how much I know now about nutrition and health, and knowing how little I knew in my early 20s, and just understanding health the way I understand it now, it's just amazing. It's just amazing. It's completely different. And looking at the way I used to eat in my early 20s, and even, I'll be honest, as I started Eats by Emily, was definitely misaligned with what I know now to be true about health. But I had started just because I liked to talk about healthy eating. And I look at what I was eating, and while it wasn't the worst food and nutrition in the world, it certainly wasn't where it could have been. And all throughout this time, I can't help but talk about my skin because this was such a big part of my journey. all throughout this time, I had horrid skin health. I was dealing with these cystic, painful acne issues. I was constantly on antibiotics. My immune health was a wreck. And now in retrospect, which I've shared on this, I know it was because my gut was a mess. I have problems with detox, so my liver was probably overburdened. There's just a lot of contributing factors here. But I remember distinctly feeling, why does my skin look this way when I eat so healthfully? And it's just so fascinating because I'm sure that this is something that people experience because we're following the way that the standard American diet tells us we should be eating healthfully. All right, and I'll explain what I mean by that. And then we're having these health issues and we can't understand why. We can't understand why we're having these symptoms or why we're, inflamed digestively, having these acid reflux, indigestion, bloating, gas, constipation, why we're having hormonal issues, why our periods are so painful, all of these issues. And I think a lot of it has to do to the fact that, as I just mentioned, we are aligning with what the standard American diet says is healthy. And that is low calorie, low carb, low fat, that is avoid red meat. That is don't have too much healthy fat or don't have too much fat. The list goes on. Or we should be eating artificial sweeteners and not having refined sugar or what are some other things? I don't know. The list goes on. And that is why so many of us suffer. That is why I suffered. I mean, if there was a dairy-free product, no matter what the ingredients look like, your girl had that in her fridge. Any dairy-free, ice cream, creamers, milks, yogurts, you name it, I had every dairy-free option there was because I did not know the difference between dairy-free and actually nourishing or dairy-free and, actually going to serve my health. And that is one of the biggest red flags I think about looking back. But even for a short period of time, I mean, I cut out caffeine. I cut out dairy. I cut out, what else did I cut out? I don't remember. Something else I cut out. But I cut out these things thinking that was going to be the solution to my skin problems when I could not even see the whole picture. I couldn't even comprehend. There was no possible way for me to comprehend all of the interconnectedness of these issues. And I was still focused on, what foods are said to be good? What superfoods are said to be good for skin health? Or what should I be eating more of? What should I be eating less of? Which is not going to move the needle as much as looking at the whole picture, looking at my whole lifestyle, which was stress, not sleeping, drinking too much, eating what I thought or considered was healthy, doing a lot of high intensity, and thinking I was going to heal in that state. And I couldn't understand what the culprit was. I remember buying supplements, thinking that certain supplements I took could heal my skin. Now I'm going on this tangent, but it's such a big part of the journey because I look back at the way I was eating and it just was not it. It just simply was not it. And this is not meant to judge anyone who is maybe figuring out their own journey or maybe is feeling overwhelmed or confused by it all. You're maybe in the midst of it all. Wherever you are, give yourself credit for being where you are and knowing that it does take time to find what works for you and to really educate yourself. But it's unfortunate because I think a lot of people are struggling as a result of dysfunctional or misleading nutritional suggestions based on the food industry, based on marketing, based on what we see and what we read about and what the media says we should be avoiding, and we've really just lost touch. And so issues continue to persist. We continue to live in the space of this diet mentality where either we think that healthy eating is all salads and chicken and broccoli, or we, follow some sort of trendy diet program or plan thinking that that's going to be the solution. And our relationships with nutrition are just so dysfunctional and so disfigured and we are lost in the midst of it all. And I'm speaking from experience here. Okay. I never want to come across as I figured it out. I got it all figured out. I don't. I'm learning constantly every single day. Always, always, always I'm learning. And I also was in a position where I was feeling very lost. And at the time, I don't think I was lost. I don't think at the time I acknowledged I was lost, but I was lost. I wasn't focused on how much protein I was eating, how much fiber I was eating, how the ingredients looked on the packages of the food that I was eating. It wasn't a priority. I was just following what I thought was healthy. And over the course of my own self-education, over the course of learning, I have completely changed the way I eat, and I understand food in a different way now that actually aligns with what is going to nourish my body best. What is this bringing to my body? And this is the eventual destination that I hope everyone gets to at some point. And like I said, it's a journey eternally, but the destination in referring to looking at food as it's meant to, looking at food as fuel, because that is what it is on this earth for. It is on this earth to fuel us, to nourish us, to give our body what it needs to function, to do its job. And we lost that somewhere along the way. And we've accepted the food that we see in the grocery store as being suitable or as being enough for us or appropriate. What's the word? I'm looking for a word here and I can't find it. As being, I don't know. I just said a couple words ago. Suitable, appropriate. As being, I don't know, good enough. Someone help me out here. What's the word I'm looking for to make my point, to really drive this point home? We've just accepted it, and that's why we're struggling. That's why we're suffering. That's why there's so many issues in this country with our health, because the food we're eating is not nourishing us. So as I moved through my early 20s and started to learn a little bit more, that's when things changed for me. I wasn't eating any, if at all, red meat. Fish wasn't really something that I would eat. My dad loves fish, and so I'd eat maybe the fish my dad would cook up, or if we got sushi, which, that's kind of questionable. But other than that, I was predominantly eating lots of chicken, lots of turkey, and that I think is a big, big shift that I've personally made in my nutritional journey. Just within maybe the past 2 years, 3 years, I now really love to rotate my proteins, but I more often than not am eating a red meat than I am chicken or turkey. I'll have chicken, I'll have turkey, just because, like I said, I like to rotate them. But from what I understand and what I believe, red meat and fish are among two of the most nutrient animal-based sources of, or animal-based foods that we can be consuming. That's my personal opinion. But it's interesting because I think for the span of when I looked at, for the span of the time that I considered health or understood food, I think chicken gets that reputation because it's lean. And same with turkey, it's lean, which makes sense. It's a leaner meat. But what about the nutrition that you're getting? You're getting nutrition from chicken. You're getting protein from it. Absolutely. But what about the nutrition you're getting from fish? What about the nutrition you're getting from red meat? And considering the value that it's bringing to the body in comparison to just, the standard American diet says that chicken is the most healthful, and that's what we should be eating most of. Some experts say we should be boycotting chicken and not even, considering chicken in our diet, that we should be eating almost predominantly red meat or, bison, things of that nature, and then fish. So, like I said, there's varying opinions and there's lots of different perspectives on this, but that is one big change I've noticed since maybe we'll say 25 to 30. All right, that's will give us that window of time. Something else that I've definitely paid more attention to is my protein intake, which it's a broken record. I say this to my clients all the time. Are you getting enough protein? Are you getting enough protein? but definitely paying more attention to my protein intake. I look back at some meals that I even shared on Eats by Emily. I'm really exposing myself here. And I'd be like, girl, where is the protein? Holy cow, what are you doing? Like, I'm mad at myself because Instagram will like bring back memories for me of the years prior. And I'll see what I ate and I'm like, oh, like I'll have just avocado toast for breakfast. That's it. Like, girl, where's the protein? What are you doing? So it's interesting because I look back and I look at what I was eating and what I thought was healthy at the time. And while avocado toast is certainly much better than a bowl of, Cocoa Puffs, I was not focusing on the macronutrition there. I was just eating what was considered healthy, not really considering, okay, well, is this balanced? Do I have protein, fiber, fat? Do I have all of those essential components to build a balanced plate? I simply just ate it because I thought it was healthy. And don't get me wrong, this was a period of time where I forget if I had just started my holistic health coaching certification. It was 2018 when I started it. So I was still very much learning. I mean, I don't even know when I started to feel like I had an interest in nutrition. I wish I could remember that moment because I really don't remember. I guess I would share on Snapchat, honestly. I remember seeing some snaps over the years of memories of recipes I'd make or things I would post, dairy-free, recipes, and not full-blown recipes, but just baking and so forth. And I think maybe that's where it started. I don't remember. I wish I could remember, but I don't. But I was still so unaware and so uneducated when I first started that page. And while I had basic knowledge, it really is fascinating to look back and see like how little I knew, but how confident I was about it, around some of these meals that I was making for myself. And now I'm off track. But protein, definitely. I think low fat was definitely something that I was caught up in for a long time, thinking that I shouldn't be eating so much fat, thinking I shouldn't be having dressing on my salads, thinking I, should avoid butter and I should avoid, I should be eating more of the plant-based items. That's something that I really bought into for a while. So like plant-based butters or plant-based burgers or plant-based, what else? What other things do they have now that's plant-based? I mean, my perspective has completely changed on all of those things. Completely changed. I mean, I look at the ingredients of some of these plant-based oils, or not oils, butters, plant-based burgers, plant-based meats. I mean, holy cow, the ingredients are just you can't read them. You don't know what they are. It's the getting caught up in the alternative world too far, too much, thinking that these alternatives are healthy because they're plant-based, because they're dairy-free. And that was something that I had to come to terms with and realize, wait a second, this is just something that the food industry is trying to market to us to make it seem like this is a better alternative to what's out there. The real food that our ancestors have been eating for decades and centuries and so on. And now suddenly it's super demonized and it's a problem. So it must be healthier for us to reach for these alternatives. So just an interesting phase in my life. I think now more than ever, I'm eating more, but I'm eating with more intentionality. I also am such a big proponent to understanding how to eat for nourishing certain organ systems. So specifically liver health, skin health, gut health, brain health, hormone health. And what you'll come to find is a lot of these nutritional strategies, they overlap with each other. A lot of it is real whole foods, anti-inflammatory foods. So you're really killing many birds with one stone in that regard. But understanding what your body needs. I remember following this girl on Instagram, and she would always post, she was a registered dietitian, and she'd always post her plate. And then on each food, she'd write what nutrition was coming from that specific food. And I remember seeing her do that and being like, I want to do that. I want to be able to do that. I want to be able to understand food and do it that way, and be able to say, like, this is all that you're getting from it, as opposed to this is how many calories, or this is good for you, this is bad for you. And I feel very comfortable now being able to share on certain foods and most foods and say, this is what it's bringing the body from a macro and micronutrition lens. And I think that's what we all need. We all deserve that basic understanding, because that not only allows us to appreciate our food more, but it also informs us about how to build a plate that's going to be comprehensively nourishing for our bodies, which is ultimately what we should all be striving for, is to bring foods into our bodies that is going to help allow it to function the way that it should. So this episode has officially gone all over the place, and I think I've thought about deleting it 6 times throughout recording it, because I know it's a little chaotic and there's really no plan to it per se, but I wanted to just be able to hit record and just talk about this, because I think this is a really big issue within the nutrition space, and I'm glad that I'm able to bring in some of my own experience into it and talk a little bit more about thoughts I had over the course of my nutritional journey and where I am now, and things I can share with you. Maybe some of it resonates. But ultimately, what I learned is it's not about a certain diet. It's not about low calorie. It's really not about the calories at all. It's not about the packaging on the shelves. It's about the basics. It's the foundations. And what is so unfortunate is our food culture and our nutritional culture, I guess, if we can even call it that, has confused us and has led us down this rabbit hole to believe that we should be doing all of these over-the-top, extreme, restrictive diets, and we should be only eating kale, and we should only be eating, what are the other superfoods, that chia seeds, and what are the other ones? Goji berries, I think, are one of them. Cacao nibs, I think. I don't know. There's like these very specific superfoods that have gotten the reputation of being superfood for whatever reason. And people think we have to load up on them. But anyways, we have this confusion around what we should be eating, and we think that we're going to find it on the shelves, or it's going to be some diet, or it's going to be some cleanse, and it's not. It's literally not. It is eating in accordance with our biology, and that is real whole foods. The foods that was put on this earth for us to consume. That God created, that the universe created, whatever you believe in. That is what it is. We are so caught up in the noise of what the food industry and our culture says is the way to eat, or the way to be healthy, or whatever it is. And it's a mess, and it's a problem. And I think even further to the weight loss conversation, and I've spoken on this before, but if you're having trouble with weight loss, there's oftentimes something else going on underneath the surface that's causing that to be the case. And I think we get caught up in, well, I'm eating healthy and I'm exercising and I don't know why it's not happening. And that's very frustrating. I completely understand. However, you have to be willing to look deeper, because if you are giving your body what it needs and you're moving your body, sometimes there is a deeper rooted issue that's there that's causing that resistance, and it's worth your while to look into it. It's not, oh, I need to be eating less calories and exercising more. That's going to further the damage. That's probably going to make matters worse. It's just not the solution. So that's kind of a side tangent. But when it comes to eating real foods, my journey has been a long and turbulent one. I look even just within, say, 25 to 27, learning and exploring and understanding more and incorporating the foods that I was once fearful of, not in a I'm afraid because they'll cause weight gain or because I had a bad experience with them per se, but just because our culture tells us that we should be afraid of it. Our culture says we should stay away from it. And as I've mentioned, there's no one size fits all, and it's going to look differently on everyone. However, the moral of the story is, if you're focusing on real whole foods, that will always be the right answer. That will always be the right answer. And we need to stop getting caught up in the complications and the complexities that our culture tries to sell us as a means of their profit, number one, and as a means to keep us sick and confused, because that is also the goal. Keep us sick and confused, and they make money, and we are sick and confused, and they profit off of us. They make the foods highly addictive so that we want more of it. It's a mess. And once again, here I am on another tangent. But I think my story is very average. I didn't grow up in a household that believed in this. I didn't eat organic. I didn't eat lots of fiber and veggies and protein and all that. I simply grew up in a home that looks like most modern American homes. And don't get me wrong, I feel very lucky for my childhood and my upbringing and my experience there. But it wasn't until I got into my 20s that I started to really better understand food and really understand it, not just what we're being sold by the industry and what we're told by the media is healthy and what we should be afraid of. Like, for example, being afraid of eggs because of the cholesterol. Like, people are terrified to have too many eggs. And I guess the FDA just recently put eggs on the healthy food list. But for years, people are afraid of it. The egg yolk is one of the most nutrient-dense foods we can be eating. It's allegedly, they call it a perfect food. It is so nutrient-dense. All B vitamins, vitamin D, healthy fat. I mean, it's a plethora of nutrition. And yet our culture tells us, don't have too many egg yolks. Don't have too many egg yolks. It's no good. And we believe it and we buy into it. And that's a problem. And that's just one example. So I'm grateful for my journey. You guys, I'm all over the place. And thank goodness, I'll be completely honest, this daylight savings is throwing me for a loop here. Okay. I am so tired right now, and I don't know why. It's only 7:00. I have to stay up. The Bachelor is on tonight, obviously. I'm making my way through, and I'm sorry that this episode is all over the place. I don't even know what I'm going to title it because it's so chaotic. But I'm hopeful that from this episode, while it was kind of a just brain dump, essentially, that I was able to empower you a little bit more to understanding your food, being patient as you move along your own journey, and hopefully sharing about my experience and how I went through the waves of focusing on calories to focusing on low fat, trying the different diets. I mean, I tried this one diet like multiple times, and it wasn't fun. It was a bunch of different supplements. You had to drink this fiber drink, which was terrible. I mean, it was miserable. It was miserable. And I never got the results that I wanted. You know, it was just rigid and wasn't fun, and I couldn't wait to be off of it. Now I love the life that I live when it comes to my nutrition. I have so much fun with it. Food is so beautiful. And I'm so excited that we get the opportunity, and I feel very lucky to have the opportunity because I know that not everyone has access and not everyone has the privilege to it. But I feel so lucky to be able to fill my fridge and my body with foods that are going to do good and fuel my cells, take care of my organ systems, all of that. And I think that that's such an exciting thing to think about because you know what that leads to. That leads to a long life, that leads to longevity, that leads to wellness and well-being. And we need to start looking at food as being that. And it took me a long time. So I'm grateful to have gotten to where I am. I know there's still a lot to learn, like I said, and a lot to go, but I wanted to be able to share a little bit about my journey and what it looked like, especially through my 20s, and my understanding of nutrition and how it's evolved, and maybe it will help you. So thank you so much for joining me on this wild ride that was this episode. It was, and you can't deny it. I appreciate you, and I hope that you've been enjoying National Nutrition Month alongside me. Please go follow me on social media if you don't already. That is really where the bulk of National Nutrition Month is taking place. My newsletter as well, but also TikTok and Instagram, both linked in the show notes. Follow along. And I will see you next time at the table. And in the meantime, be well.